Hey everyone, John P. here. Today we are going to be covering what some are calling an absolute epidemic of watch thefts, including and mostly actually Rolex watches. We're going to be covering what people are talking about, where these are happening, but also at the end of this video, I'm going to be covering a couple of things, a couple of tips that you can do or use to your benefit to try to cut down on that, mitigate the risk, and lower the chances of you being the target with your precious watch, as well as how you can just insure yourself. But before we do that, guys, on the wrist today, I actually have an Omega Seamaster Aquaterra on an aftermarket strap here, titanium, very cool and light summer watch here for South Florida. And of course, please do not forget to check out Delray Watch, where we buy, sell, trade watches. We have so many cool watches that we work around the clock to add to inventory for you to take advantage of at the most competitive price, or at least we aim to be. So let's talk about it. The surge in Rolex and other watch thefts has been going on the last couple of years. And according to a recent article by Bloomberg, just last year alone, there was 1.3, so over $1 billion, $1.3 billion estimated value in watch thefts alone. And that's only going to be the reported watches in places where it is easily reportable. We have to consider that oftentimes it doesn't get reported and the valuations are probably people just, offering up the valuations themselves as opposed to, going through an insurance method, right? Watch gets stolen, you tell them what the value was. So over 1.3 billion US dollars alone just last year. I would consider that significant. And there is a registry out there called the Watch Register that offers a service where they do catalog this, and there have been over 80,000 just with their service reported stolen watches, and it's not that old of a service here. So over 80,000 stolen watches for sure, and over $1 billion. So this is something that is real. It's happening, and it's becoming increasing. This particular service has provided different sources, including Bloomberg, with data to show that this is happening increasingly so. Now, there may be an increase in the number of reports, but regardless, it's trending upward, and this is a problem for us as watch collectors who, go figure, would like to keep their watches preferably on their wrist, right? Now, how does this happen? Now, I see this all the time. I'm in different dealer groups and chat groups, and this is what I do, right? I talk with other dealers and collectors all day, every day, for years now. And it seems like what happens is typically it's a Rolex watch, or from what I hear, anecdotally, it's something else that's easily recognizable, maybe something like an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. And the criminals are not just some guy on the street that shakes you down for what he can get. These are people that spend time watching videos like this, trying to figure out how to target people based on their risk. They're targeting precious metal watches, but really they're looking for the bracelets. They're looking for the Oyster bracelet, the Jubilee bracelet, and they are looking for the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak classic shape, and even Hublot. Yes, Hublot. They are targeting watches that are easy to sell in the market out there. They call it fencing. They sell these watches to people that specialize in spreading them out. They know who plays ball, and they know where to send these watches in the world, sometimes across borders, right? They'll take the watch, they'll send it over to a place where it's disjointed from the rest of the watch collecting community, right? If the theft happens in Asia, they send it to the US. If it happens in the US, they send it to Asia or parts of Eastern Europe or Russia, other places like that, where there's not this great connection, right? If you're in the EU, they're gonna send it out of the EU. If you're in the US, they're gonna send it out of the US. That's how sophisticated these crime rings have gotten. Now, in the past, even this scenario would happen for jewelry. You'd have these crime rings that would come from a couple of different countries. Notably, the one that was hitting Florida a number of years ago was coming from Peru, because they did catch some of these, and they were part of crime rings and syndicates, and the people would come up here. They'd be off of the radar, right? These are people that, are not on the radar. They're not in the system in the United States, right? They're not people that are living here and registered to where law enforcement knows about them or the government knows that they exist here, right? They come in through methods that they can get in, any way they can get in. These are professional criminals. It's their job to find a way. It's their job. They find a way. They spend more time on it than people do in stopping them. So they come here, they do that, and they've been doing it. They have little tricks where they can clip the electricity, and then they test it, they time it, they see how long it takes for police to come, and then maybe a few weeks later, they hit the store, they come in, Mission Impossible style with a rope down the chimney kind of a thing. I've heard of people falling through ceilings, and they look up, and when the jewelry store owner comes in, he sees this big hole in the ceiling. People cut through the ceiling sometimes. That's how sophisticated it was getting there for a while. But nonetheless, these people with the watches are generally targeting you on the street or sometimes in a restaurant. They run in, they take it, they go, people give it to them. Maybe they have a weapon. Regardless, most people just give it up, right? They don't want to die. Makes sense. I understand that. So what can we do? What can collectors do to try to limit your exposure? I mean, there's some obvious ones, right? Depends on the neighborhood you go into. Maybe if you have to go into certain neighborhoods that, are higher in crime, maybe don't wear that watch that day. Maybe wear a jacket or a shirt with a sleeve, a long sleeve and a cuff. Tuck the watch under the cuff. Yeah, there are some obvious things, right? Don't make your high-end watch necessarily that visible. And this is gonna hurt the people that like to flex, but I know that's not many of us out there in this particular channel and collecting community because we're collectors, not flexers, maybe a few. But what else you can do? If you have a Rolex watch, consider maybe putting it on an aftermarket strap. A lot of people do it. They like it on rubber. It's more comfortable anyway, depending on the season. That's an option for you. A lot of times people will do that. This is how they target it. The Oyster bracelet is iconic. The Jubilee bracelet's iconic. It's almost always that way, and it's why Rolex is the number one. There's other watches they could come for, but they're not going to notice a Journe from 50 feet away, but they're going to notice that bracelet maybe. They're doing it. I see it all the time. So that's something to consider. Also, I think it goes without saying, but be aware of your surroundings. You have to consider that I think sometimes us collectors can forget, even myself, that when you have these things on your wrist, this is kind of like you're just carrying around, gold bullion on your wrist, or you have a bank account on your wrist sometimes. And not everybody is a nice person. They want to take what you have if they can get away with it. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I think we all know that crime exists. But what I'm trying to drive home here is that in the collector communities, yeah, everybody's got these super high-end watches, and you see someone with a Newman Daytona or something like that, you're like, yeah, that's going to be the target. But no, who's the target is going to be the watch that's easy to sell. It's going to be low to mid-tier. Rolex, maybe some higher-end stuff, but mass-produced watches like Submariners, like Datejust watches that can easily be sold, traded, go anywhere in the world, get cash for it. These are the watches. That's who they target. And it seems to be increasing based on the sources that I've mentioned and other reports from other dealers and collectors. So personally, I am more cautious than I ever have been. Everyone that I know in the industry is also the same. Many dealers, they don't even feel the need necessarily to wear watches, especially if they're in a jewelry district, because they don't want to take the risk, because people know they plan these things and it's happening more than ever. So be safe is what I'm saying. And I really wanted to bring awareness to this. And it seems like this is becoming a thing we need to keep our eyes on as enthusiasts and hobbyists, and not just people that, strap a bank account to their wrist. But what do you guys think? I'd love to see it and hear it in the comments below. Once again, I'm really not trying to scare anyone. I just think it's a good public service announcement to share with you all out there the things that I'm seeing, a little bit of data to support it, and just a good reminder, hey, not everyone's a watch collector and enthusiast. Let's keep our eyes open and stay safe out there. Guys, we'll see you next time. You've been chatting with John P.